As a fledgling video game developer, I think it's important to reflect upon what influences you in the creation process. In the 21st century, it's rare to find original thought. Stories as old as time are continually rehashed, recycled, and reconstructed. In an effort to stimulate game design ideas for myself and appease the nostalgic crowd, this episode is a list of my top 5 Super Nintendo games. The Super Nintendo was the system that most influenced my childhood philosophy on video games. I eventually want to trace my own journey through the video game generations, seeing how my tastes have evolved over the years, and what helped make me the gamer I am today. Number 5. Super Mario RPG. Legend of the Seven Stars. The ultimate crossover. Squaresoft and Nintendo came together and developed one of the best RPGs released at the end of the Super Nintendo's lifespan. This game is my favorite RPG starring our little plumber friend. It took risks. It added amazing new characters to the Mario universe who have sadly never been used since. I assume it's because of copyright issues. It had depth and a revolutionary combat system that was simple and engaging. This game's influence set the stage for the Paper Mario series and several other RPGs including Legend of Dragoon and more recently The Stick of Truth. Number 4. Super Metroid. This is the best Metroid game, period. I'm the first to grow into a snob when it comes to video games' transition to 3D. Ocarina of Time is not the best Zelda. Mario 64 is not the best Mario. Most series were in their prime, no pun intended, on the Super Nintendo. Taking the foundation built in the previous generation and then refining its gameplay while enhancing the visuals. Super Metroid captured this evolution perfectly. As well, it cemented in the gamers' minds that there can be such a thing as a strong female protagonist. Sorry, Anita. This game influenced Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, and Dust and Elysian Tale, among others. Number 3. Chrono Trigger. Before I'm cast out as a heretic for placing a vast majority of RPG nerds' definitive Super Nintendo experience in third place, keep in mind that this list is how I feel about the system, and I'm entitled to think differently than you. Chrono Trigger is amazing. The best time travel game to ever exist. Sorry, Time Splitters. Some of the greatest characters ever imagined in video game history, and a combat system both exciting and rewarding are offered in this game. The combat system allows you characters to combine skills and really feel like a team. I played this game dozens of times and achieved every ending. My favorite is the one where you fight Lavis at the very beginning of the game with just Chrono and Marl, and you get to visit the developer's room at the end of time. I don't even need to say what games this one influenced. Number 2. Earthbound. My top 2 Super Nintendo games were very difficult for me to position. The number 1 spot is my favorite game from my childhood and a giant influence on me, but Earthbound is my favorite Super Nintendo game today. This game truly stood the test of time and stayed remarkably relevant. The demand for content like this is so popular today, and it shows just how ahead of its time the game really was. I was fortunate enough to experience this game in my youth on a friend's recommendation, and it was so unlike anything I had ever played before. What other game do you have to pray to beat the final boss? There are so many videos going over the merits of this game, and if you play no other game on this list, I implore you to play this one. It is truly a work of art. Number 1, though, goes to Final Fantasy III, or 6 for those that are very too snobbish about the naming conventions. It says 3 right on the cartridge. This is the game that changed it all for me. I had casually played games with friends for several years, falling down pits as Mario, fighting aliens in Contra, recovering the Triforce, and saving the damsel in Zelda. But it was Final Fantasy III that opened up my eyes to the idea that video games could be art. This was my first RPG, and it led me down the path I walk today as a developer. The story and characters are even better than those in Chrono Trigger, in my opinion. Sure, Lavis is an ultimate badass, but Lavis is alien. It's Kefka's humanity that makes his madness all the more frightening. He's the kind of man who commits mass genocide by poisoning an entire city's water supply, the kind of man who wants to enslave an entire race and extort them to bolster his global power, the kind of man who changes the face of the world with weapons of mass destruction. Kefka is the best video game villain because his sickness is humanity's sickness. He embodies everything that's wrong with us, and he wins. His ascension from court jester to a deity that lords over the New World was unprecedented, and hasn't been achieved to the same degree since. The cast of characters is as varied as those in Chrono Trigger, but without the time period stereotypes attached to them. They each have strengths and weaknesses and feel real. Although they are fantastical, they are still relatable. Struggling with lost love, family feuds, and identity crisis, we grow fond of them and immerse ourselves in their story. So many games were influenced by its storytelling, character, and depth that it is still heavily praised today, and if you haven't figured it out, this is by far my favorite Final Fantasy game. 7 may have launched the game into the public consciousness, and molded how a 3D RPG should be made, but it was 6 that perfected the traditional 2D JRPG, above Dragon Quest, Breath of Fire, and all the rest. This game showed you how it was done. I can only hope that I can create a game as influential as this one. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Hope you gained a little insight into the way I perceive video games and the influence they've had on my life. Feel free to comment below, share your experiences in gaming with me. This community is young, but it is strong, and together I think we can really utilize the medium to elevate each other and ourselves. Remember, next time somebody takes your picture, say Fuzzy Pickles.